Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at the market site in Times Square, New York City, we have Indranil Ghosh. He's the founder and CEO of Tiger Hill Capital, and we're going to take a look at building businesses and community with a social impact mission. Indranil, it's great to have you with us at market site. And right now, if you're catching this live, Davos is going, and a big theme there has been ESG and impact investing. But I think before we even get into that, we have to understand where we are. We're at a crossroads right now in human history. Tell us more about that.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, if you think about the scale of the environmental and social challenges that we face, it really requires the investment of trillions of dollars, not billions, trillions of dollars annually into solving some of these sustainable development issues. And we really have to find a way to deploy that capital at the right rate into solving problems like poverty, retraining people for jobs of the future, and of course, a decarbonized economy to avert climate crisis.
All right, now the roadmap for this positive change, it includes three key pillars, if you will. The first one being an inclusive form of governance.
Yes. So I think if you look at how increasingly citizens may be blocked out of opportunities, it's because of the soaring costs of basic things like housing, education, healthcare, and even childcare. Without affordability in these things, it's very difficult for people to even go to work sometimes and also get a chance to get the good job opportunities. So it's very important that we reset, the way our economies are structured so that we pour more capital into solving some of these basic service problems and empower people to take up the job opportunities that are out there.
All right, now I think the second point is the most important, a collaborative model of long-term investment between public and private capital, because we simply can't rely on public resources to enact this monumental change. And I also think it's a good thing with private investment because you can actually get involved on the local community level.
Yeah. If you just look at the numbers, the amount of capital, additional capital beyond what's in public budgets that we need annually to solve these social and environmental problems is somewhere in the range of $2.5 to $5 trillion. Now, the global tax base is only $25 trillion. So increasing taxes by 10 to 20% across the board is just not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So that's why we have to incentivize private capital to play a role through things like sustainable investing, through other incentives that allow decarbonization to happen of the economy, and to pour money into sort of more basic social services.
All right, now when we talk about the empowerment of community, the third pillar here, if you will, as you were saying before, you can't simply just raise the tax rate from 10 to 20%. And then the other question is, who's to say how these funds are allocated in the right way? So I think when you have the involvement of community and private capital, it helps to alleviate some of those concerns over where the allocation is actually going.
That's right. And so I think a really good example is the rural economy of small towns which have been deindustrialized or really suffered from the globalization of the economy. It's very important that we redirect more investment into those areas. And they have great natural assets to work with. So in a world where we need to take the carbon out of the atmosphere, regenerative farming, forestry, new industries based on biomaterials will thrive in rural areas. And we need to get local government and investment and businesses to partner together to make those communities very productive again.
All right, now when we were talking about the crossroads of where we are in human history, a big part of the narrative was globalization. Think locally, but act globally. Are we at that point where globalization, it's done its job, but it also does, there's a lot of outliers out there because locally a lot of people have not been able to participate in that.
That's right, and I think the big concern is that globalization has done good overall, mm-hmm. but not for everyone. It's not been distributed evenly enough. And this is where I think better domestic policies to invest in industries of the future in places like rural areas that have the natural assets to be centers of those industries of the future makes a lot of sense, and therefore creates more job creation locally, and also a better economy in a global context where there's more exporting opportunities in sectors that a country may not have been strong in before.
All right, now to wrap up here, clearly ESG thinking and investing, it's not a trend, it's something that's here to stay. Do you think as humans we have the ability to enact this change? Do you think that we will see positive results and we'll be able to execute on this?
I think the upswelling of a passion for doing the right thing as well as doing good business is really coming to a head, and that's fantastic. But I think there are still some challenges ahead in ESG investing, because it's still very difficult to tell apart what is a good performing ESG company and a less good performing one because there's no standardized set of metrics. And beyond that, companies aren't actually required to disclose all the information you need to make a judgment about good or bad. So what we really need to do is to work harder at setting those standards. But even today, I think what we can do is try to figure out what the companies are that are good at things we care about and invest in those. So for example, if you care about climate, you should probably be investing in an index that screens out coal and sort of oil companies. If you care about gender equality, perhaps you should be investing in a fund that focuses on women-owned businesses. So there are things that we can do even while the market catches up in making ESG easier by focusing on specific goals and objectives and focusing on companies that deliver those rather than thinking about which companies are good ESG companies overall, because that's still difficult to tell.
All right, Indranil, thank you so much for joining us at MarketSite.
Great to
And
be
thank
here.
you for joining me on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.